Hello everyone, Pavel Supanenko here. If you want to see my workflow in Lightroom without involving Photoshop, keep watching this video as today I'll show you how I transform this boring mountain view into the juicy evening sunset. See you right back. Believe me or not, but I've been using Lightroom only since last year, 2019, as before that I was totally a Photoshop guy who didn't want to try anything new, but at some point, totally by coincidence, I tried Lightroom and discovered for myself that it is so much easier to color grade there compared to Photoshop, which is designed for more complex stuff. So today I will walk you through my process of color grading. Our example will be the photo I took a couple of weeks ago while on vacation in Polish mountains with my family. We lived in a beautiful wooden house with a stunning view, however the weather was not so great apart from the first 2 or 3 days. So the photo you see right now was taken during one of those showery days when it stopped raining only for a moment in the evening, so I could finally see some pieces of a blue sky and a little bit of sun rays. And by the way guys, if some of you are wondering what this tutorial has to do with a video content creation, which my channel is all about, everyone needs nice looking thumbnails for the videos, right? And Lightroom is a great tool to prepare your image before adding some text or your beautiful face to it in Photoshop, for example, later on, right? Okay, enough of talking, let's just get into the Lightroom. This is my original raw image, shot with my Sony a7 III camera and a Sony 85mm f1.5 autofocus lens. First thing that I always think about before editing the photo is, what do I need it for? If that's for a private digital family photo library, I wouldn't care much about annoying details in the foreground, like these two dark elements here. But if I want to post it on Instagram or Facebook, then it's better to crop it and adjust to have it look much better than the original framing. And that is what we are doing right now. I'm cutting a little bit of sky as there is too much of it, and also cropping the bottom part of the image because of these two distracting dark elements. Hit enter and unnecessary edges will be gone. Next thing you should pay attention to is Adobe Picture Profile. These are presets Adobe is offering which you may adjust depending on the kind of photo you have. I have a landscape image, so I will stick to the landscape profile, which makes my colors pop a little bit better than other profiles do. Let's move to light. Here you can see a bunch of settings. You may always try to use auto to see if that may be a good starting point for you. After clicking this button you can see how many sliders change their positions. However, today I'll be doing everything manually, so let's just click it one more time to revert the effect. Okay, let's go one by one. Exposure. The image is exposed well enough. Our histogram is not clipping, the spikes are more or less in the middle. However, let's make it a little bit brighter. I will not touch the contrast option as I will do that in a moment by using the curves here below. I will go right away to highlight and reduce it to almost minimum. The reason I'm doing it, that will help me to recover the elements of bright sky that were blown up a bit after I increased the exposure level. Shadows I'm increasing way too far to be able to see details in shadows, but don't worry, I may always decrease it back whenever I need. Additionally, I will increase the whites and decrease the blacks a little bit. And finally, I got to the point curve where I'll be able to change the contrast and highlights in a more dynamic way. I'm putting 3 dots on the RGB curve in order to break the line symmetrically and be able to move only parts of it without affecting the rest of the curve. Basically, by dragging the curve down at the bottom, I make my image darker in shadows, and by dragging the curve up on the top, I make highlights brighter. Apart from the RGB curve, you may also adjust each RGB channel separately. And that is what I'll do now, as there is too much blue color and my goal is to make a warm orange sunset as the final effect. So I'm dragging the entire curve down and decreasing the presence of this color. To immediately see the difference between the original photo and what we've already achieved, use the backslash button on your keyboard. Okay, we're done with light. However, guys, every photo is so unique. Normally I would go back to some of these tabs to tweak and move the sliders back and forth to achieve the desired effect, but to keep it simple, let's just move forward. In the Color tab, the first thing we need to consider is a white balance. If you know your white balance settings were incorrect while shooting the photo, probably you may consider using one of these presets. But I'm not looking for realistic colors this time, and I don't have any people in my image as skin tones are very sensitive to white balance. I will manually adjust the temperature to give it the look I want. If you feel this slider is too sensitive, put the numbers by typing. I will not touch tint settings as my picture is okay and doesn't look neither too green nor magenta. I will add some vibrance, which generally increases the intensity of the more muted colors without affecting well-saturated ones, and then we'll decrease the saturation a little bit. As we see, we've already done a lot of changes to our photo and it already looks much better than before. Some of you would leave it as it is, however, I want to make it even more contrasty and juicy. The color mixer will help us to increase the intensity of different colors separately. As you see, we don't have much red on our image, so while I'm moving the slider, nothing happens. However, orange and yellow, definitely this is something that will affect the result. I want to make sunlight more orange and less yellow. I'm not changing much within green and aqua colors, however, I definitely should get rid of the blue color. Purple and magenta are fine, so let's move to the Effects tab. I don't really like the texture effect, so I'll skip it. I'll use Clarity and Dehaze. These two options give a really good popping effect, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. I will also not use the grain effect, as later on I will use this setting to actually get rid of some grain in my image. Vignette effect I will apply at the very end of this tutorial. In the Detail tab, I don't want to add sharpness to my image, as it will increase the noise. What I want to do is to reduce the noise I already have by using the Reduce Noise function. Color Noise Reduction setting will help to get rid of color artifacts that I have in my clouds, for example. I will move it to maximum. When we open the Optics tab, we can see that there are two options to choose from. One of them to remove chromatic aberration, second one to enable lens correction. I will not choose any of them because there is no much difference in the result after I apply the lens correction effect to my 85mm lens. Moreover, it makes more sense with a wide-angle lens. And what about chromatic aberration? There is an information below. Built-in lens profile has been already applied. If you click this info, you may see that in my case, Lightroom has read from my RAW file what camera and lens I was using, and automatically applied some fixes to chromatic aberration that may be very useful in case you have a lens that is not performing great. Nothing to change in geometry, all looks good. Let's now go to the brush tool to make the final touches to our image. The way this tool works is very simple. By drawing, you are affecting the photo only in these areas you are touching with the brush. So I will now make this forest a little bit brighter and will change the look of the sky for a more dramatic one. As I want to change the forest first, I will make a preset for my brush by increasing the exposure, adding some contrast and shifting the shadows back. And then when you start drawing, you'll see how it affects only the area I'm touching. By hovering over the point you started painting, you may see which area has been already affected. And forest done. Let's move towards the bottom part of the sky. To create a new brush, hit the plus sign. After that, reset the settings below that were used for the forest and create the new ones. I definitely want to add more contrast and saturation to my sunset area. And now, while I'm drawing, you may see how colors are starting to get a more juicy look. The last third thing I wanted to correct is the upper part of the sky. I want to make it darker. I create a new brush, making it a little bit bigger, and after resetting the settings from the previous brush, I'm adjusting the contrast, highlights and shadows for the rest of the sky. Little bit of drawing, and now it looks much better than before. I always like to switch between the original view and the result to see the impact of my changes. And sometimes I'm really very surprised how much information the RAW file contains that it is possible to introduce so many changes into a single image without involving any advanced editing tools like Photoshop. Many of you would probably add the vignetting effect to darken the edges of a photo or some other effects. There are so many possibilities how to make any picture not boring at all. I'm so excited that I can share my experience and give you some advice. And by the way, if you are looking for other tips for video content creation, check out my playlist over there, as well as in the description. You'll definitely find some useful information there. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel, okay? Good. See you soon. Cheers!